Welcome to another episode of Three Questions and a Laugh, a new webisode series where I interview really interesting people about really interesting topics, and then I ask them to share a story, a joke, a pun, something to bring a smile to your face during these difficult times. So my guest today is not just really interesting, she is outrageous, which is why I have an outrageous shirt on to try to match her energy. My guest today is Mikki Williams. Let me introduce you to Mikki for those of you who don't know who she is. Mikki is a certified speaking professional, a member of the prestigious CPAE Speaker Hall of Fame, and a TEDx speaker. She's a global celebrity speaker and a transformational storyteller. She was chosen as one of the best speakers in the country by Meetings and Convention magazine, along with folks like Tony Robbins, Bill Gates, Lou Holtz, and Jay Leno. Mikki is an award-winning Vistage speaker, which is the world's leading executive organization, and she's the master chair of two of their peer advisory boards in Chicago. She's based in sunny and warm Naples, Florida. And if that's not enough, this busy entrepreneur runs Speaker School, the Mickey Mouth Club, Keynote Camp, Outrageous Orators, and is an in-demand speech coach. She has spoken in every US state, every Canadian province, and every continent except Antarctica, where she can't wear her stilettos. Please join me in welcoming Mikki Williams. Mikki, welcome.
Hi, Craig. You're looking great in that colorful shirt. I feel you're more outrageous than me. What's up with that?
Well, just trying to match you, my friend. And I realize that you may call me Woody in this interview because that's what you're used to calling me. So we'll just have to explain that to people in case a Woody slips out in the middle of this.
Thank you for that. Yes.
So today I thought we would explore the concept of pivoting. So many folks are having to pivot today, whether it be forced due to job cuts or required innovation in their business, or even just pivoting to how they're working remotely. And I believe that you are the queen of pivot. Your whole life has been around pivoting. So that's the theme of today's conversation. Sound good?
Yeah, it sounds perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. So here's your first question. So let's start with your story, one that's made up of really deliberate pivots. So tell us about your story, Mikki Williams.
It's funny that you use the word pivot because that's the new buzzword of today, Woody, but actually it used to be reinvention. And that was always what I was called, the queen of reinvention. Now you've dubbed me a new title, queen of pivot. Mine actually started from a very defining moment in my life. A lot of people, if they've seen my TED Talk or know me, know that I was unexpectedly, unfortunately, widowed at the age of 29 with a 2-year-old child, no job, a mortgage, and very little life insurance. And that really was the beginning of my reinvention. And I don't know, you use the word deliberate. I don't know if I could say it was deliberate. It was more about survival and choice. And from that, I took my natural skill set because I really didn't have an MBA in my briefcase or any big corporate background. I was a professional dancer and I looked at what my hobbies, talents, and passions were, and I was a dancer. So I thought I'll open a dance studio. And then someone else said, well, you're a great cook. And I said, okay, I could do that. So I opened a catering business. Little did I know the dance studio became one of the most successful and famous in the country. I was featured on the front page of the USA Today newspaper in the money column, no less. And the catering business, which I started with a little known person named Martha Stewart, who was my dance student, also did very well. And so I had these two businesses, one called a dance class, which was named after my most famous student, Wayne Salento, who's the choreographer of Wicked. He had just opened on Broadway in a chorus line, so I named my school a dance class in his honor. And the catering business was called The Happy Cooker. I won't explain that one. And from there, everything became reinvention after reinvention. Again, I can't say any of what, I just don't know if I could use the word deliberate, Woody, because every business that came after that was, I'm very goal oriented, as you know me, and I'd reach my goals and then I'd go, okay, now what? So I like growing companies, and then I'd get to a certain point where I hate to say bored, but it was time for another reinvention. And you know, the old cliche, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, when it did, I don't really fear change or risk like most people do. And I think that's the key underneath reinvention or pivot or whatever you want to call it.
That's great. And you have a storied history that we certainly can't cover in this entire period. You and I know each other sort of from the recent world. And so I know you in your current career. So your second question is about talking about how you got into the career you're in now. What was that pivot like?
That was unique in regard to all the others. I was in one business when I was starting the other, and I always knew what the next one was. This career as a professional speaker really was not like that. I sold my last business in a little bit of a year, and when I finished selling that business, I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And I took a year to figure it out. I went back to college to get my master's degree in hospitality management, thinking I wanted to open a hotel. And then I segued from that into meeting planning. And then from that, I segued over to professional speaking. I mean, that's a very short version of a very long story. But the point behind the story is that I really didn't know. And I was just dabbling till I got to the place where I knew I was home, and that's professional speaking, which was a culmination of my life. When you think about it, it was taking all my business expertise, all my life experience, all my stage experience as a performer, and putting it all together in this new career. And that's really how I got there.
Well, and now you've had to pivot even that speaking career because we're not meeting face to face, we're meeting in Zoom these days. And so I'll end your questions on this. What advice do you have for those that are in some stage of pivoting now, of reinventing now? What advice can you give them as someone who's been through this and done it before?
A few things come to mind, Craig. As you know, no grass grows under my proverbial feet. And I think I pivoted before when people didn't even know what the word was at this point. I think a lot of people might be hesitating, waiting to see what's going to happen next. Well, goodness knows we didn't even know what the next was going to be. I think one of the things is just to jump in with both feet. And jump into what? It's looking at, I think it's a new opportunity. If the job you're in isn't the job you really want, maybe you want to look at what your passion is, what your hobbies are, what your talents are. I built businesses out of two skill sets that I never planned on making into careers, dancing and cooking. And look where I am now. So I think it's really taking this opportunity to jump in quickly and with both feet and just go for it. What's the worst can happen? You know.
You do know, yes. Well, I hope that the Queen of Pivot sticks as a title for you. You have enough titles, but that would be one. Certainly to me, you inspire people to think outside the box, to think differently about what they can do. And this time is forcing us to do it. And thank you for taking some time to speak with us about that. Now comes the laugh portion of the conversation. Not only are you a great pivoter, you're the world's foremost storyteller in my mind. So give us a joke, a pun, or a story that will bring a smile to people's face during these difficult times.
Well, being it was 3 questions and a laugh, I thought it was 3 laughs and some questions. So I have a couple little ones.
Sounds great.
2 of them come from a speaker school, which is really very funny. They're just, as I call, anecdotes. They're not full stories. And one of them happened at one of my member, Dave DeStore, who you know quite well, his architectural firm, Jensen and Halstead, the oldest firm in Chicago. I always ran my speaker school there, and Dave always put all his architects through my speaker school. And one day I had one of his newer architects, Peter, whose first language was Polish. And I had spent the morning teaching everyone how to put humor in presentations, because that's really important. And Peter, when we took a break, after I had taught them about self-effacing humor and self-deprecating humor, and that's really the best kind because it humanizes you, and I spent a lot of time on it. Peter takes a break, and Dave sees him walking through the halls of the firm, and he says, "Peter, how are you enjoying Mikki's speaker school?" And Peter says, "Oh, it's good, very, very good." And Dave says, "Well, tell me one thing you learned so far." And Peter puffs up his chest and he says, "I learned how to use self-defecating humor."
Oh my goodness.
There's your one laugh, Craig. You know I have tons, but there's your one laugh.
A bit of a dirty joke, if you will. So that is awesome. Well, I don't do this very often, but I will say for those of you who are listening and don't know Mikki, you should explore her speaker school. It is an incredibly well-run and heralded program to help you become a better speaker. And she's adapted it to be for virtual folks now. How do you run a virtual meeting? How do you give virtual keynotes? So if you haven't had a chance to do that, look that up. Mikki, thank you so much for the time today and for giving of yourself in so many ways to so many people.
Thank you, Craig. It's hard to say that. Thank you, Woody. It was a lot of fun, as I knew it would be.
Thanks. I appreciate you, friend. Take care.
Bye.